Esteemed mortal, it's I, your jazz friend from the hottest hell. Hope you have completed the first part of this story. If not, better go complete that and start jazzing, or you will get axed. The Axeman.
For a brief moment, the city laughed again. Jazz had triumphed, or so it seemed. But evil doesn't disappear with music. Over the next few months, fear crept back into homes. Rumors spread of strange figures seen near grocers' back doors. Police patrolled the streets every night, but no one could predict where, or when, the Axeman would strike again. In August 1919, the terror returned. Steve Boca, a grocer, was found barely alive, his skull fractured, his home broken into the same way as before. He survived, but remembered nothing. Just the smell of something sweet in the air, and the sound of faint humming before he lost consciousness. Police called it a copycat. The public called it proof. The Axeman was back. New Orleans spiraled into hysteria. Doors were barricaded with furniture. Families took turns standing guard through the night. Italian grocers, still the primary victims, carried shotguns behind their counters. But the killer remained invisible, always one step ahead. The final known Axeman murder took place on October 27, 1919. Mike Pepitone, a grocer and father of 6, was found dead in his home. His wife discovered him moments after the attack, his skull crushed, walls splattered, axe discarded beside the bed. She told police she saw a large man fleeing into the rain, his clothes soaked in blood. But like every time before, no one ever found him. That was the last time the Axeman ever struck. After 1919, he was gone. No arrests, no confessions, no trace. Over the years, investigators floated dozens of theories. Some believed the Axeman was a lunatic drifter, targeting Italian grocers out of hate or delusion. Others thought he was connected to organized crime, punishing store owners who refused to pay protection money. One suspect, a man named Joseph Mumford, was even shot and killed by a victim's widow in Los Angeles, who claimed he was the Axeman. But evidence was thin, and no connection was ever proven. The Axeman's true identity remains one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. The Axeman of New Orleans vanished as suddenly as he appeared, leaving behind fear, fascination, and a city forever changed. To this day, his letter still chills the heart. I am what you Orleanians call the Axeman, and I will never be caught. Perhaps he was a man, perhaps he was a myth, but in the heartbeat of jazz and the echoes of those haunted streets, his legend still plays on. By the winter of 1919, New Orleans was exhausted. The Axeman's killings had stopped, but fear lingered in every alleyway, in every song played after dark. The city's people wanted answers. They wanted justice. They wanted to believe the nightmare was finally over. But the truth was far more elusive, because for the police, the Axeman had simply disappeared. Detectives reviewed every lead, every surviving witness statement, but each report ended the same way. No suspect, no motive, no pattern. The attacks had ceased as suddenly as they began. And then silence. Weeks turned into months. People returned to their lives. Doors were repaired. Axes were put away. Jazz clubs reopened, though the music sounded different now. The laughter carried a trace of unease, a tremor of memory that the Axeman could return at any time. In 1920, detectives stumbled upon a curious pattern. A handful of victims had connections, distant ones, to a man named Joseph Mumford. He was a small-time criminal, known for racketeering, blackmail, and running extortion rings against Italian grocers. It wasn't much, but the lead was compelling enough to pursue. When police tried to locate him in New Orleans, they found nothing. He'd left the city months earlier, right around the time the killings stopped. Coincidence or something more? 2 years later, nearly 2,000 miles away, the story took an unexpected turn. On December 2, 1920, a man named Joseph Mumford was shot dead on the streets of Los Angeles. The shooter was identified as Mrs. Esther Albano, widow of Mike Pepitone, the Axeman's final victim. According to police reports, Esther had tracked Mumford down after hiring a private investigator. She claimed he was responsible for her husband's death, and that he was in fact the Axeman of New Orleans. Witnesses said she approached him calmly, drew a revolver, and fired twice. Mumford died instantly. Esther was arrested, but the courts showed mercy. Her sentence was light, and many in New Orleans called her a hero. So who was the Axeman, really? Was he a lone madman? A criminal punishing his own community? Or something darker, an enforcer for organized crime? Historians suggest that the murders followed a clear pattern. Most victims were Italian grocers who refused to pay protection money to extortion rings operating in the city. The weapon, the victim's own axes, could have been a calling card. Others point to the killer's eerie intelligence, the letters, the timing, the psychological terror. Too theatrical for a mob hit. Too deliberate for random insanity. The truth sits somewhere between logic and legend. Over time, the Axeman took on a new form in New Orleans memory. He became the city's own boogeyman, part demon, part man, all mystery. Jazz musicians told stories of the night they played for their lives. Writers compared him to Jack the Ripper. Local folklore turned him into a spirit that hunted silence, a devil who demanded music as tribute. Even today, some say that if you walk the old neighborhoods of New Orleans at night, and the streets fall too quiet, you can still hear the faint tap of a jazz beat echoing behind you. The Axeman story has lived on for more than a century. It's been retold in books, songs, and television. He's become a symbol of New Orleans' darkness and its resilience. In the end, the Axeman didn't just leave a trail of blood. He left behind a cultural imprint, a warning about fear, about obsession, and about the thin line between art and madness. Because for one night in 1919, music itself became a weapon against evil. More than 100 years have passed since the Axeman last walked these streets. But the question remains, was he ever caught? Was he ever real? Or was he simply a reflection, a shadow cast by a city learning to live with its own darkness? In New Orleans, every legend has a rhythm, and sometimes, the rhythm kills.